Good morning, Sheriff.
Morning.
Did your parents ever say, "You sure eating a lot? You got a tapeworm in there?"
Yes, that was a phrase in our house. Or a third leg.
There you go. Had to feel your tummy.
Yeah.
Did you guys have encyclopedias in your house growing up?
Yes, we had a set from probably, I think this is the
One of the first sets?
early to mid 70s, but I think the set that we got from the dump because they were missing like half of the covers and the backs and the pages.
Can't do any book reports
No.
on anything from L's or Q.
Right.
Oh, thank goodness we have phones.
Yes.
So, is this a busy weekend for you guys, obviously?
Lots of travel. Yeah, this last week was, just ridiculous with our unfortunate crash. And then obviously that kind of puts everything into perspective, and then you lose a lot of time based off of the amount of energy that you put into that. And so it's just been trying to play catch up all week with the other stuff that went on. So
Not necessarily this particular crash this week, but any time the radio goes off and an officer is involved in a crash, what's the initial reaction you've got?
it is I actually have permission from Deputy Anderson to release his name, and I said I was going to probably talk about it a little bit this morning. And so just so everybody knows, Lee is doing well. He's got surgery today for his hand. He broke his hand in several places from the crash. Lee and I have been very close friends. We're practically neighbors. We live about a mile apart, and I've known him for 24 years. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's it's not only one of your guys, but it's a friend. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't matter if you were a friend or not. When a law enforcement officer's radio goes off with the audio that we had that day from it, I was actually getting ready for something that I was excited for. I was excited because we were going to be promoting somebody in our office, and I had interviews that morning, so I was preparing for that. And when I knew that we were involved in looking for the stolen vehicle, I knew that they'd found it. I knew that they had chased it a little ways and lost it, and then they found it again. And when the radio traffic came out from this incident, I think my stomach was somewhere on the floor. And I talked to a number of other guys after the fact who said the exact same thing. Like, when it's just one of those things that you can't control, and when you're not there and you're not like 100,000 things go through your mind as to what's going on, and it's just one of those things that you don't ever want to experience. And I was just talking to one of our deputies last night, and she was like, "I don't ever want to hear that again. Like, I could go with my whole career with not hearing that again." And I was like, "Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about."
What is different about a response for the sheriff when it's property related, stolen car, which is a big deal?
It's a big deal for somebody.
And
Right.
Yeah.
harm to people.
Way different. When you have, there's a lot of debate in the country right now, not just even in the state of Minnesota. There's a lot of agencies that don't pursue. There's a lot of agencies that still pursue. We want people to use common sense. We don't want to take away tools from our people and overanalyze or micromanage every situation, because every situation is different. We train people, we provide them great equipment, and then we allow them to make sound decisions. And typically a supervisor, anybody can call off a pursuit. And in this particular circumstance, because it was property, it's like, is this that important? However, there was some other things that I'm not going to talk about just for the case purposes, but there is the factor that this moved off of main highways and was on rural gravel roads that are not well traveled. So the propensity for the danger to the public is significantly less.
But I would say the danger to the officer is a lot higher.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. There was some damage to other vehicles that weren't involved in the crash itself because of some of the brush and things like that the individual eluded on trails and whatnot. But it's one of those things where when you're the first person chasing, a lot of times you get tunnel vision because you're hyper focused on what you're chasing, right? It's like the wolf chasing the ram off the cliff. That's where we rely heavily on our supervisors to make judgment calls that are not either directly in the pursuit or maybe someone in the back saying, "Hey, this is getting out of control." This is an instant where we didn't even have our deputy was stopped in the road and was taken head on.
Right.
So he wasn't even chasing him. We were looking for him again, and we just found him. He was coming back, and this happened from a standpoint of where we found him to where the crash happened was literally about 7 to 8 seconds. So there's not a lot of reaction time there. So, so but it does change for everything. You have an incident where, God forbid, something like what happened down in Minneapolis here the other day would happen. You'd probably chase that individual till the tires fell off, type of situation. Property crimes vary. If this is a career suspect that is just continuing to do harm to the community via, break-ins and whatnot, you have to weigh those out in comparison to like a shoplifter from, a box store who stole, say, $40 worth of makeup. We're not going to chase a suspect like that. But
on a chase, if you guys call it off, they don't slow down. They
Correct.
continue their crime.
Correct. And so those are weighted things that we look at as well. And, what was the reason for the stop? Was it a moving violation where, let's say it's possible that it's an intoxicated driver, the vehicle's all over the road. If the individual's just not stopping for us, not creating additional public safety concerns, we may continue to pursue just based off of that. Time of day, location, if we're chasing into a populated area, that's going to weigh heavily on whether or not we do some of those things. Doesn't mean we're not going to. It just means we have to weigh that option and take that into consideration.
So you mentioned the school shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Cass County's had a rough week. Boating fatality and a shooting within,
2 days.
less than 24 hours of each other.
Right.
Yeah.
What can the Beltrami sheriff do? Be it training because of some of this kind of stuff, or how do you utilize what else has happened around the state to improve your department?
It's funny you mentioned that because Sheriff Welk and I communicate probably on I wouldn't say daily, but we're pretty close, and we communicate probably at least 2 or 3 times a week. Some weeks, just depending on what's going on. We do share an area where Cass County and Beltrami County converge into an area where there is a lot of issues with crime, and we do share that intelligence with our PBTF, our Paul Bunyan Drug Task Force, and their task force. Their investigators, Leech Lake is a part of that process as well. So we do learn from one another in that regard. Anytime these kind of things happen in the world, it's takeaway points for us, right? You could say the incident down in Florida years ago where the cops didn't get into the school because there was a key issue, right? Mm. So we actually trained our cops, you don't need a key. You got these tools at your disposal, and these are the safe way to use these tools to gain access into a building, right? Yeah. Where somebody asked me, do you want keys to the school? I'm like, so how many keys are we talking to open every door in the school? I can't have cops running around with, 50 pounds of keys each and then trying to figure out which key opens which door. That's just not going to work. So, we've got agreements with the school district. We do have key card access to the schools that have key card access points. But that's not going to get you everywhere. And if something happens where the power goes down, that's not going to get you anywhere. But we do train our people for specific things to gain entry. We do cover training, obviously, as it pertains to the tactical side of clearing buildings. And clearing a building with an active shooter is significantly different than clearing a building where you're looking for a suspect who is not violent.
I can imagine.
So it all changes. And there's a lot of things. I remember we've talked about this at nauseum sometimes in our office. Is when I first started out, 25 years ago, I had to know about an inch worth of information in my brain. And in your brain's capacity, you've got 6 inches of capacity. Well, and as this job has progressed with technology and with the law changes, and law changes are every year when it comes to with the legislature, right? So now, 25 years later, it's like I forget so much because my brain is overtaxed with it. The 6 inches are gone and stuff is dumping off the hard drive on the end, So it's like the stuff that you don't deal with on a daily basis is just timing out because, if you don't deal with a dog bite every day, and you get one after 6 months, you're like, what am I supposed to do here again?
Right.
So but the public safety side of it's a little bit more. We take that a little bit more serious, and we do a lot more training as it pertains to that. So,
where were you in your career? Almost 21 years ago, Red Lake shooting.
I was actually that afternoon. I was at home. I remember specifically the phone call from our chief deputy, Tom Lyons. Tom Lyons says, "I need you to go." I lived in Black Duck at the time, so I burned up there. I was one of the first, I think, 4 deputies on scene. Went to the school. Initially, we'd known that Jeff Weiss had ultimately killed himself. There was the belief that there was no other actors at that time, and we started having plenty of people on scene. I was then tasked to go to the hospital and start preparing for the arrival of patients and deceased kids. It was horrible. It was horrible. I watched. You see the raw emotion of parents when it comes to and other family members showing up on those kinds of things, and just the devastation of community members and law enforcement. Obviously, we were all devastated by that, and it was one of those things that I will never forget in my entire life.
Do you have flashbacks on days like?
Absolutely.
Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it was?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember my very first ever inkling of a school shooting, and that was Klebold and Harris down at Columbine.
Yeah.
I wasn't even a law enforcement officer at that point. I had just finished my college education. My wife and I were living in Iowa, and I remember that vividly coming home and finding that out from work. And I remember you never hear that kind of stuff. Well, then I was doing some research, and I don't remember the specific year. There was a much greater incident that occurred in our country, not with a firearm. It was with an individual who had taken I want to say it was a Mennonite or Amish school hostage with dynamite back in the late 20s, either in Pennsylvania or Ohio. I can't remember the exact state, and killed a lot of kids. This isn't a new thing. The public, and I hate the fact that people want to politicize this for their agenda. Whether you're firearm friendly or anti-firearm, that doesn't matter. This isn't a tool issue. This is a heart issue in our country, and whether you're someone who believes, that, we're seeing a lot of these things where these kids have some type of dysfunction in their brain, and they're coming out today, and I tend not to lean towards a lot of news media anymore as to why, because they just say it, and if it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not, and they won't retract it. Like we've talked about that before, but they're saying that this individual has a manifesto. If that's the case, they're saying that he wanted to hurt kids, and it's like, why would you want to hurt kids? a reasonable person doesn't want to hurt kids, right? So there's something going on there. Mm-hmm. And our state, our country needs to do more as it pertains to identifying and getting these folks help.
Parents, talk to your kids.
Yeah, exactly. Be a part of their lives. That's the biggest thing, is be a part of their lives. Know what their daily stuff is. Don't let TikTok, don't let YouTube, don't let these social media platforms parent your child.
Because back in the day of tapeworms and encyclopedias, our parents would kick us out of the house.
Right. We got to move on to something better, guys. This is depressing.
You can come home when the street lights come on. Otherwise, stay out.
We do have a public event tonight, Casting with Cops.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Diamond Point from 4 to 6 tonight. It's a public event. Come on down. We've provided the bait, the rods and reels. You get to hang out with us. I think there's going to be some lure painting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
could get a free life jacket.
yeah.
4 to 6, just show up.
Diamond Point.
Plenty of parking where the trees used to be.
Right. Come see the new park. Get it? What are you doing this weekend, Sheriff?
What? Oh, trees.
Laboring.
Yeah. Trees.
Sorry. Thanks.
Yeah.
You have a good weekend.
You as well.